So today is the last episode of Mushoku Tensei Season 2 Core 1. It's it's sad. It's sad that we're going to have to say goodbye to this series for the next 6 months because that's how long we're going to have to wait. We're not going to see a continuation of Season 2 until next year in April. And to be fair, 6 months isn't a whole lot, but it just sucks because, like, this conclusion, this episode, where it ends off on, I know for a fact got everybody like, really? You're just gonna end it right here, especially after everything? And to be fair, this is a very nice conclusion to the first half of Season 2. When you think about just the context of what the journey has been about for Season 2 so far, I feel like Rudy, finding, love in Sylphie, them getting together, them even marrying, them having, their first time together with each other, and, just everything about, like, Rudy curing his ED problem, to Sylphie building up her own courage, to, Rudy also having more confidence within himself. There's a lot that this episode does, and it concludes basically the main presentation of what Season 2 was about. And I like that, because it's not often you see with anime or, like, the main goal and objective is complete. Like, I know that there's always Season 2, Season 3s and stuff, but usually, like, when, let's say, a season begins, the objective of that season doesn't really get concluded till much, much later. Maybe a Season 3, Season 4, etc. But the fact that the story basically started off with Rudy feeling very isolated and lonely, and then finding Sylphie, and then having this confidence, built up back within him, and feeling that he's not alone anymore, it's a very beautiful message. I like the message of Season 2, at least Core 1, and it's legitimately just, it's sad to see it come to an end, but, I mean, once again, we'll just have to wait, and we'll see the return of Rudy and Sylphie's journey. And to be fair, the animators did say, like, someone in the animation team said that they wanted to do all of Mushoku Tensei's story, so for all we know, that could be basically 100 episodes of content or more. So yeah, I mean, overall, we're gonna have a lot to look forward to, but it's just, once again, it's just sad to see a conclusion once again, because it feels like it was just yesterday that Season 2 started, and now it's already kind of wrapping up, and we're gonna have to wait 6 months. But, okay, with that, let's talk about, this episode. Let's get into the actual core content, how the conclusion was, what did it settle and wrap up, everything. Let's just get right into it, and how the, overall presentation of Season 2 was. Was it good? Was it bad? Etc. Let's just get all into these nitty-gritty details. So first things first, let's talk about just this moment here. Sylphie and Rudy pretty much, confirming that they're going to be marrying. And Rudy's like, I want to marry Sylphie. Sylphie's like, sure. And then she's like, I guess I want to become a gray rat. It's a very beautiful moment because, I mean, obviously these are two individuals that grew up together. They're childhood friends. And who says that childhood friends can't win? Because clearly, childhood friend won in the end. It's nice to see that little trope kind of twisted and, actually the childhood friend wins in the end, which let's get into that. I know anyone that is an anime only and, didn't know what was about to happen probably just got their whole world shattered because, if you're an Eris or Roxy fan, the fact that Rudy, is legitimately marrying Sylphie, that just probably crushes anyone's hopes of the future for those two characters. It makes you wonder, how is Eris gonna feel about Rudy, getting with someone? How is Roxy gonna feel? There's just so much really to kind of dive into. Especially since we know that Rudy has literally a temple to Roxy, so it's just like, how is that gonna work, I know people that watched this episode and had no idea what was about to happen, legitimately probably were in shock. They're like, did that really just happen? And I gotta admit, I really like, just how we actually had a proper conclusion to this romance. Like, okay, let me explain. I've watched a lot of romance anime and read a lot of romance manga, and I'm really just happy with the conclusion of these feelings between Rudy and Sylphie, because typically when it comes to, like, feelings between two characters, it ends up with, like, holding of hands, kissing, and that's about it. And eventually there's a time skip to where they have a kid. That's about it. And that's all that we usually get with those type of things. And the kid thing is usually for, like, the last chapter of a story, so to speak, okay? That's usually where romance, anime, or manga go towards. But obviously Mushoku Tensei isn't that type of story, and which is what really makes it stand out, because it's like, there's a lot of organic things that this series really presents that feel like real. They don't feel fake or forced. And the reason to prove this point is that, like, there's a whole scene within this episode to where Rudy and Sylphie, they they had sex with each other. It's 100% what happened. It was off-screened, but it is 100% implied. Anyone cannot say, nah, did they not? It's 100% implied with different messages here and there with the sheets to just how they woke up. Everything about it is 100%. Everybody knows what happened. And it's interesting that the series confirmed that, basically showcasing that, yes, they, have, kind of elevated the relationship to a higher level, and also their first time wasn't, everything that they potentially imagined. There was differences to them probably drinking, to having to take an aphrodisiac, everything like that. There was different things that probably they both didn't envision to have for their first time, but it is still very interesting just how organic everything kind of came off. But another big detail I want to mention is that that scene in particular that was off-screened was actually in the light novel, FYI. I kind of believed that wasn't going to get shown, but at the same time, I kind of believed it would, and hear me out. The reason why is because they showed that whole stuff with, Elena, early on in Season 2, with the whole thing about her character. A whole episode was pretty much dedicated to her getting, getting, plowing the field, so to speak. And I expected, honestly, to some shape or form, maybe elements of that being within, this episode. But it wasn't. And you might have heard from light novel readers or source readers that, there was cut content. For instance, that scene. Personally, I don't think it takes anything away. I think that they showed enough to kind of get the context of what happened and everything about Sylphie and all that and Rudy and their feelings. I don't think it necessarily needed to be showed. However, I do think that for sake of just people probably worried, most likely that content will probably be added in the BD DVD release. I mean, there was already kind of examples of this potentially happening with the whole Elena stuff. So it's very likely that probably will be added content for the BD DVD release when it officially comes out in Japan. That's my assumption. I could be wrong there, but I'm assuming. Even if it isn't shown, I don't think it's necessarily that important to be shown, because once again, the message is still across. And what is the message, okay? The message that the scene was trying to convey, and the whole point of it, is this right here, where Rudy and Sylphie, hug after everything in the next morning. And what this implies is that Rudy isn't alone. If you remember, back at the end of Season 1 and the beginning of Season 2, Eris had that one-night stand with Rudy, straight up left, okay? And obviously there was some complications and misunderstanding between the two, but it does not change the fact that Eris did leave, walked out the door after the whole one-night stand, and just, Rudy felt like, what did I do? Did he underperform? Did he say something wrong? All these different type of things. And he blamed himself, and we saw how dark he really kind of dug himself. He was really in darkness for a good long while because of just the sheer isolation and trauma. And so when he woke up and he realized that Sylphie wasn't beside him, instantly he got worried. You just saw his expression at the end of this episode where it felt like, oh, it happened once again. He felt isolated. You saw the way his character was expressing himself. But then when Sylphie walked through the door, he gets up and he hugs Sylphie. It's a very emotional moment because it confirms that Sylphie isn't going to walk out and leave him, and Rudy now knows this. It confirmed his feelings that no, it was just a one-time thing, and Sylphie will be here for him. It's a very emotional scene, like I said, and it, settles that plot point. Rudy has been healed, not just in the ED department, but mentally in terms of just, being able to understand that people just won't walk out and leave him anymore. He won't have to take everything on his own by himself. It's beautiful. Love the message. The message is really good with this series, and I think that it was a perfect way to wrap up Core 1 of Season 2. Now, besides all of that, there is a few other things to kind of discuss with, this episode. Now, one thing in particular I do want to mention is that the first time, with the whole aphrodisiac and the alcohol and stuff, there was a lot of parallels to Eris's first time with Rudy that we got at the end of Season 1, and I want to kind of point it out. Basically, there was a whole scene where, wine was spilling and stuff, where they were drinking, and then the wine kind of, fell onto the ground. That was reminiscent of what Eris did to Rudy. If you remember, Eris and Rudy, they drank at the end of Season 1, right before they did it, and, the wine spilled, and it kind of represented, blood, the loss of innocence. There was a lot of ways to really interpret that scene, and on top of that, many took it as Eris taking advantage of Rudy in that moment. That's what a lot of people kind of viewed that scene as, and regardless if you disagree or not, a lot of people did have that viewpoint. And the thing is that this scene where Rudy and Sylphie, do, they basically, they both kind of drink. They both take the aphrodisiac. There's both consent between the two, and it doesn't feel like either or is really taking advantage, because Sylphie could have, like, maybe spiked the drinks or something, and maybe given the aphrodisiac to Rudy, but she didn't do that. She could have not said anything to him, but Rudy took it willingly, and then she took it willingly, and then they both drank side by side each other, and there was an act of just, a mutual understanding between the two. And I want to get back into the fact that, it was their first time, and I know some people might, be like, why did they need all this for their first time? And I want to open up reality, okay? First times are not as probably fairy tale as a lot of people like to think. There is a lot of things that potentially could go wrong, the things that, just you would never envision, and clearly their first time wasn't exactly what they wanted, which I already kind of slightly talked about in this video, but it doesn't change the fact that they both love each other and they both are very happy, and that's the ending sequence or the message of the episode, that they are both very happy with each other, and it's nice to see, because Rudy obviously really cares for Sylphie, Sylphie really cares for him, and I think she brings a lot of good qualities out of him, and he does the exact same for her. But, yeah, I think that's about it when it comes to this episode of Mushoku Tensei. It's legitimately good. It's a very simple episode in terms of, like, what happened, like, it's just the two characters finding love within each other. But I think that, once again, it settles the core themes of what Season 2 had. And I know people are probably a little bit upset that, Season 2 hasn't been action-packed. I know that, because, when you think about the content of Season 1, there was a lot of action, but Season 2 has been a slow burn, and more been on character building and building up Rudy and Sylphie as a character, and showcasing that the development of Rudy separating from Sylphie at the beginning of Season 1 was very important for this to all happen, because if Sylphie was the same person that was kind of, like, cowardly, and had to tug on Rudy's shirt and follow him from behind, I don't think she would have been able to do what she did within Season 2. So I think that is very important that we had, like, a conclusion to that as well. But I'll leave it at that. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys for the next reviews I do, and I'll see you all when any more information on Mushoku Tensei comes out as well. But be safe, stay healthy, guys, and I love you all. Chibi out.